Good morning. We welcome our viewers on YouTube, our local people who watch it, as well as those around the world. Welcome to Eastminster United Church in Belleville, Ontario, Canada. It's July 30th, and my name is Gary Magarrell, and I've been part of the staff here, and I'm retired now. But we're all welcome in this summer, beautiful sunshiny day here, to this service of worship. I'm wondering how many of you can believe we're at this date in the year 2017. July 30th, the completion of the 7th month of this year, and August is literally around the corner. So what do you remember about 2017 to date? Has it been all you hoped for? Have you accomplished your to-do lists? Any complaints to date? I think in all of those areas, I'd have to say, no, I haven't done everything I wanted to do, even though I have more time today to do it. As my home of 14 years sold last November, I began to dream about the new place we had bought and completely moved into in early April. We'd given all our yard and deck furniture to friends, as we did not know if we would have a new place that had an outdoor deck or even had a lawn. That was before we had decided where we would purchase. Then we knew we had a deck, we had plans to renew and enlarge it, and we did so. Furniture purchased and a well-known Canadian firm arrived. We assembled the furniture, not as easy as the instructions say, and waited for the sunny days ahead. But for those of you viewing, you might not know that we have not had as many sunshiny days as we've had rainy days this summer here in Canada. One could be gloomy, but the few sunny days we have make it all worth it. As I was deciding what my subject would be for this Sunday in mid-September, I began to be conscious in my head of a great song I remember hearing since my childhood days. Just as an aside, it's interesting when you are a visiting minister, you're not always sure if you said some of this before the last time you were here. And my records are not as good as Ed Bentley's were. I think Ed Bentley knew exactly what he said every sermon he had for 31 years. But we're not all as organized as he was. But I kept hearing this particular song in my head. And I was born to parents who loved ballroom dancing. And the dance music was always on throughout the week. Guy Lombardo was a particular favorite and a true Canadian icon. With the advent of TV in our home, Lawrence Welk and his orchestra became the weekly event. Do any of you remember those people? My memories also include the monthly barn or community hall dances that at home. A group always was a pianist, a fiddler, and an accordion player. And here Western music reigned supreme, with polkas, waltzes, schottisches, square dancing, etc. My mother created many dresses for my two sisters and colorful shirts for my father and me as we went to those events. No one stayed at home. Times were never easy. They never have been through history for most people who are working. Not easy on farmers due most often to the result of things you could not control, such as weather, grasshoppers, world wheat prices, and grain blight, to name but a few. Though a tough way to make a living, our farming community was determined to set up opportunities for relaxation, fun, laughter, music, dancing, and just plain good times. We never realized how tough were the years and the times in which we lived. But the tune that has engulfed me as I prepared this homily for our worship today is the 1931 composition by Duke Ellington with lyrics by Irving Mills. I'm sure many of you can hear this melody in your mind when I name it. It goes something like this. It was the birth of the swing era. As I say, he was composed by Ellington and sung by the greats, Louis Armstrong, Ella Fitzgerald, Tony Bennett, to name a few. It goes something like this. It don't mean a thing if it ain't got that swing. Do-wah, do-wah, do-wah. You remember that went on and on. It don't mean a thing, all you've got to do is sing. Do-wah, do-wah, do-wah. It makes no difference if it's sweet or it's hot. Just give that rhythm everything you've got. Everything you've got. Wonderful lyrics, not many, when you remember it was written in the Depression, which has settled on the world in the dirty 30s. Perhaps more important, the music caused toes to tap, feet to dance, and bodies to rock, was a reminder to everybody of the sheer joy of living, the joy of life. It was a celebration of the joy of life even in the midst of gloom and doom of the Depression. I knew a man who refused to allow himself to slip into this joyous mood, as he could always list the unfairness of the world and the hardship of the earth. We can all do that, but music and dance reminds us of the resilience of the human mind, spirit, and body. A few minutes ago, before we came online, there was some boisterous singing and joy about the joy of life we heard, and we were a part of it. Even managed in the United Church to clap our hands. But our scripture lessons today, both from the Old Testament as it happens, relate to the power of music, whether in song or dance. Our first reading, Phil read, is from Psalm 30, a psalm that is considered to be written by David himself, who's about to dedicate the new temple. This is not the huge temple that we hear about that was built by his son Solomon, but it was a new temple. It was a larger version of it, and David was very excited to open it. David had been feeling for a long time that God had distanced himself from him. But now he realized that God had blessed him in so many ways and enabled him to succeed in a difficult time. He declares that his time of mourning and his sense of separation from God is over. David can only dance for joy and cannot be stopped, nor does he bother to worry about what people around him say about his joyous dancing. He says he is girded with gladness within him and without. His soul praises God, he says, and he cannot remain silent. He cannot remain still. He cannot stop the dance. God is with him, and he will not be sad or afraid anymore. It was a great moment for David, his sense that God had not only called him to be king for many years, but that God had renewed his faith in him in this great step forward of the temple. But the next reading was from the book called the 2nd Samuel, and it builds on the first story. David has finally brought the ark of God to be placed in this new temple. You remember this ark contained the stone tablets of Moses outlining the 10 Commandments. David is so overjoyed that he dances with minimum clothing on in a joyous and freely abandoned style. People are amazed at David's lack of care about his rank as he dances in open abandonment. Some are shocked. Others catch his excitement and begin to dance also. However, among his disapproving onlookers is one of his many wives. She's horrified, deeply embarrassed for him. Not David. He simply cannot contain his excitement and his joy. And King David, in these early brief passages, gives us a clue about belief in God and God's plan for each one of us. David experienced so many low points in his life when family members, including his eldest son Absalom, fought against him. He knew many of the court elite felt he was too demonstrative in his worship of God. You can just hear people saying these words. What do you expect of him? He wasn't born into a royal family. In fact, was a lowly shepherd when he was young. Grudgingly, they would admit his many skills and his victories over the enemy, but really, to dance so joyously with abandon is hardly king-like. They felt that even God may be offended by this boisterous display of joy. But David, over the years, often admitted that he was not giving thanks to God often enough. He was aware of the compromises he had to make. He felt he had to make to keep peace with his enemies. But in spite of all of that, David could not contain his excitement now with this new temple and with the gratitude to God he felt. God had high expectations of him and gave him the time to do some of the things he wanted to build. So on this special occasion, he was overwhelmed by the power of God and the goodness shown to him by God. Realities of kingship made him do things he was not overly proud of. When you're in leadership, there are things you have to do sometimes that are very difficult. But he never lost his gratitude to God and his love. There's another biblical Old Testament story that we all know of frenzied dance, which has been the stuff of opera, famous paintings, and moral lessons over the centuries. King Herod Antipas, there's many Herods, it's a family. This was King Herod Antipas, who had been appointed by Rome to be the ruler of Galilee. He had married Herodias, who was the divorced wife of his half-brother, Herod Philip. Herodias brought to this new marriage, her daughter Salome. Now, John the Baptist had condemned this marriage, which violated Hebrew Mosaic law. Herodias was furious and urged Herod to get rid of John once and for all. Herod either stalled or refused. Herodias knew Herod was fascinated and raptured by Salome, so he set her daughter up to dress in her most seductive outfit and dance for Herod. Herod did ask her to dance, and so it happened, and she danced what tradition claims was the dance of the 7 veils. Herod was so enraptured he offered to give Salome whatever she asked for. And Herodias had told her daughter to ask for the severed head of John the Baptist. Herod was shocked. Herod had done a lot of things, but this shocked him. No, anything else you want. Salome was adamant, and the guards on command went to John's cell and brought up his newly severed head on a large platter. Then Salome dances over the severed head in an erotic manner, and Herod is so appalled, he orders her instantly killed. This story was hijacked often in the church through the centuries, especially many of the Protestant churches that we have come down from, to ban dancing as a sin. But clearly this was not the point of the now famous story. But now back to where we are today in our personal and church pilgrimage. What does all that I have shared with you lead to understanding of God, our faith, and our worship life? My message to you and to me this summer Sunday is to be aware of the need for all of us to remember and reclaim for ourselves the joy and wonder of life, the joy and wonder of music, the joy and wonder of faith. The moderator of our United Church of Canada, the Reverend Jordan Cantwell, formerly a minister in Saskatchewan, has just announced the theme she has chosen for the next meeting of the United Church General Council in a couple of years. I rather liked what it is. The theme is Risking Faith, Daring Hope. We may be skeptical of themes, as many of us feel we've heard it all before, and maybe so. But her words clearly outline 2 critical themes in our lives of faith. The theme, Risking Faith, reminds us that we cannot be complacent in our faith. We're not the majority faith anymore, anywhere, as so many have turned their back on any faith community. But we know Jesus called on his followers to risk going on and sharing what we believe and to be open to learning from the experience of others. Jesus left no written documents. Instead, he left imprinted hearts and minds in those who followed him. His call to a joyous life was there, even in the midst of the gloom of his age. No one can take this joy from us. It grows as we share with one another. Now, the second part of the theme was Daring Hope. It challenges us not to give up. We're a people of hope. The Christian faith is a faith of hope, as we proclaim the power of love we've experienced in Jesus and those around us. John, in his second letter, verse 12, writes these words: "Though I have much to write to you, I would rather not use paper and ink, but I hope to come to see you and talk with you face to face, so that our joy may be complete." So that our joy may be complete because we are together, one with the other. I too believe there's power, learning, and joy as we come together in the worship of God. But even if, unlike David, we keep our clothes on, let us never sit still in our excitement and faith. We have so much to shout about, so much love to give, so much to learn that we can never need to be bored in this faith. I know that there's a special feeling I have when I come back into Eastminster. Because I've been a part of this fellowship, it's hard to leave when you have to leave as ministers. It's not easy. But I know that my faith was enormously enriched by this place. Not the building, not the instruments, but the human beings that are here. And that's what we have, the joy of being together in love with one another. We don't always agree. At the odd time we may not be fond of someone. But we know that we're enriched because we are being shared. We're able to share our life with people who are walking the same journey and are able to invite others to come and join it with us. So as Duke Ellington reminded us, it don't mean a thing if it ain't got that swing. We want to be alive. We want to be excited. We want to dance. We want to encourage others. We're just happy to be here.